You are making the world a better place by listening to the Joy of Living podcast. This is your guide to achieving a more purposeful, powerful, and positive life. Join Barry Shore in unlocking the best version of you and becoming happier, healthier, and wealthier. And now, here's your ambassador of joy, Barry Shore.
Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Remember, you're good-looking, so always looking for and finding the good. We have good in abundance. You're going to be amazed at the goodness you're going to be experiencing today. Transformational goodness as we speak to Dan the Beast. Time to have a lot of fun, and thank you for using the most valuable asset you have, your time, for consciously and conscientiously tuning into the Joy of Living with your humble host, Barry Shore. Because you know, in this show, we discuss the three fundamentals of life. And when you actively use these three fundamentals, you will be happier, healthier, and wealthier. Who doesn't want that, right? That's the essence of the joy of living. The three fundamentals, of course, are, number one, your life has purpose. And when you lead a purpose-driven life, number two happens. Now, in this case, a good number two. You go MAD. Now, MAD is a great acronym that stands for make a difference. You lead a purpose-driven life, you make a difference in the world. And the third fundamental of life is to uncover the power and the secrets of everyday words and terms. Simple example, right now, this show is being carried over the internet, and you are amongst 348,613 people at this very moment who have consciously and conscientiously tuned in because you care the most in the entire world about you, which is great, by the way, because when you become the best you make the world a better place. But if you ask anybody, what does WWW stand for? And invariably, they'll tell you it has to do with the internet. And factually, actually speaking, they're correct. In our world, however, the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, WWW stands for what a wonderful world. And it is, isn't it? And of course, a tip of the hat to Satchmo, Louis Armstrong, for enabling that song to go viral and not just touch tens of millions or hundreds of millions, but billions of people around the planet who have heard the song, What a Wonderful World. And right away, when you hear that song, what do? You can't help it. You smile. Now, smile is one of the most important words you can ever internalize, utilize, and leverage in your life, because smile stands for seeing miracles in life every day. Seeing miracles in life every day. Now, thank God I'm back on the circuit, speaking to people in public, lots of hugging, no mask. It's really great to be human again. And I'll tell you, recently I spoke, I had 1,176 people in the audience, and we're talking about Barry Shore's story and about seeing miracles in life every day. And people raise their hand. Some say, hey, Barry Shore, I've been out for hours, I haven't seen any miracles. And I asked them, are you here? Can you hear? Can you see? Can you stand still? I can't. Can you walk? I can barely do that. Do you have water to drink? Do you have food to eat? Do you have a place to sleep? Do you have family or friends? Every single one of those is a miracle. Miracle. What's the simplest proof? 1 million people didn't get out of bed this morning. You know why? They died. By definition, if you're watching or listening, you didn't. Therefore, you have an obligation to live life to the full, to live life exuberantly, because that's the key. So imagine the following. Standing up in the morning, hale and hearty, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, that's me. And in the evening, in the hospital, totally, completely paralyzed. Quadriplegic, it's called. From the neck down, no movement whatsoever. Not an automobile accident, not a spinal injury, a rare disease, which I never heard of the day before, took over my body and rendered me incapable of moving. I could only communicate by blinking my eyes. 144 days in the hospital. I was in a hospital bed in my own home for 2 years. I couldn't turn over by myself. 4 years in a wheelchair. I had braces on both my legs, from my hips to my ankles. That was progress. Thank God today I'm able to be vertical and ambulatory with the help of a 7-foot walking wand. So I'm a triped, not a biped, but I still can't walk up a stair by myself. I can't walk up a curb by myself, and I have help 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. But you hear my voice. Positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, all because of this one word. Smile. Seeing miracles in life every day. I got to tell you a quick story. My 8-year-old niece comes over to me a few weeks ago. She says, Uncle Barry, can we spell smile S-M-I-E-L? And I thought about it. I said, smile sounds the same. Why not? I asked her how come. She says, because then it would stand for seeing miracles in everyday life. Out of the mouth of babes, an 8-year-old. But what was she doing? She was creating the kind of world she wants to live in. Now, CREATE is a wonderful acronym that stands for causing rethinking, enabling all to excel. It's all about your mindset. We call it fancy NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. But it's your mindset. It's that shift in perspective. Now, I've been working with people for more than 4 decades, and I can tell you something. 97.2% of the people, when I mention shift, somehow they drop the F and the other stuff happens. You got to learn, you got to be effing careful with your F's. You got to learn how to shift perspective, and then your thinking gets clear. Because here are the 6 most important words you could ever internalize, utilize, and leverage in your life. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Now, before we bring on Dan the Beast, I'm going to have to warn him and the audience that I do use a lot of 4-letter words. Now, of course, the 4-letter words, I even use the 4-letter FU word because of the fun and the shock value. But the 4-letter words that we use, of course, because we live in the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant, are love, life, hope, free, gift, swim, play, pray, mind. And the 4-letter FU word is fun. Fun, yes. F-U, capital N, capital N. So I know some people in the audience say, hey, Barry Shaw. Fun's only spelled with 3 letters. Not in our world. The world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant. Fun is F-U, capital N, capital N. So after the show, when you see your family and friends, I want you to point your finger and have a big smile on your face. Remember, this stands for a twinkle in your eye and say, F-U, everybody. But remember to add right away, capital N, capital N. I said, where'd you get that? I said, I listen to Barry Shaw, The Joy of Living, and he wants to teach the world to F you. So you got their attention. Then you can tell them all about the show and what we learned today, the transformational stuff. Before we bring on Dan the Beast, who's going to just rock your world, I want everybody to use the 2 most powerful words in the English language 3 times a day from now and the rest of your life. Why? Because it's good for you, your family, your friends, and the entire world. And these 2 words, of course, are thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks stands for to harmonize and network kindness. The Dalai Lama has been quoted saying, read in his writing, be kind whenever possible. As you said, it's always possible. So imagine you walk into your coffee shop, you order a fancy latte, and you sit down, somebody brings it to you. Say, thank you. You walk in the coffee shop, you order a fancy latte, somebody doesn't bring it. A couple of minutes, you go to the counter and say, I'm sorry, we forgot what we're busy. Sit down, another minute goes by, somebody brings you, still say, thank you. You're walking out of the coffee shop, it's raining out. Somebody holds the door open for you. You say, thank you. You're walking out of the coffee shop and it's raining and somebody slams the door on you. You say, thank you. You're in traffic, you're late for the plane, somebody cuts you off. You say, thank you. Get up in the middle of the night and you stub your toe and it hurts. You say, thank you. To harmonize and network kindness. Kind is a great word that stands for keep inspiring noble deeds. I can't think of anybody right now that inspires noble deeds more than the amazing, the wonderful, the fabulous Dan the Beast Severn. Dan, hello to 356,822 people around the world.
Well, top of the morning to everyone. I love your enthusiasm there, Barry. I really do. It's very, I'll say, it's a very attractive type of attribute to have, but also inspiring because we need more of that now more than ever, my friend.
Yes, that's why the Beast is here. Now, people are listening to the Beast and looking at the Beast right now. Say, wait a minute, what do you mean call the Beast? Look at that guy. He's bright smile, beautiful white teeth. He's well groomed and he has a great shirt on.
Well,
he did it for me. He did it for me.
You know, it was actually kind of ironic because normally when I do interviews, I usually always wear a Hawaiian shirt. When you contact me a little bit earlier, I just had one of my gym shirts that I had thrown out earlier because usually I work out in the morning. I have my desk here, but then I also have a few weights off to the side because about every hour on the hour, I try to work my mind and my body, because most people don't realize if you just do one or the other, you're going to fall apart. But if you continue to utilize mind and body, you'll last that much longer in this world.
Already you're feeling the power of this amazing man. So
Well,
I like calling him Dan.
You are a man that does lots of acronyms, and I think you'll actually appreciate this one. The Beast has a lot of negative connotations. And even as this is the first time I've met you and the first time that I've actually listened to your intro, and I'm thinking this as I'm listening to your intro, I go, I like this guy. This guy is exactly the way I think. And I go, I have to let him know that what the Beast stands for. Again, a lot of negative connotation when you hear this, but Dan Severn is not a negative person. Dan Severn is a very positive person. So the word "the" stands for Dan Severn. I'm a teacher, humanitarian, and I'm an educator. My message to young people is Beast, to believe in yourself, to educate yourself, to adjust your everyday attitude, to study hard, and then to teach others, because you can't take it with you.
Okay, Barry Shore is very rarely speechless. And even on this occasion, he's not speechless. What he's going to do is just say, "We love you, Dan."
Just even when you're doing the intro, I kept thinking, how can I take Barry off of his gameplay right now? I could have just came out and go, "Hey, Barry, guess what? Fun you today."
I was going to say, when was the last time somebody says "F you" to Dan the Beast and he laughed?
This again, just watching your intro, very great. Well, as I said before, our world could use a lot more positively now, more than ever, my friend.
Well, that's why Dan is here. See, because Dan is a cog. You know, like I mentioned the term cog, it also sounds a little too small, like a little piece in a big machine. And what's the difference? One little cog. But when you understand that cog stands for channel of goodness or child of God, now you get what the Beast is all about. And as he said, he brought it full out. He's channeling good because he uses the idea of Beast. And he does what we do in the Joy vocabulary, by the way. That's what it's called. The acronyms that I work with, we call that the Joy vocabulary. It's finding the positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant essence of words. Because words make a difference, don't they, Dan?
Oh, you have to. I mean, it's we're surrounded by a great deal of negativity, and I go, and it affects people. You see people, you know, just like as you do the introduction, someone cuts you off in a lane driving down the road. Someone does this, someone does that. Then most people, it starts to mount up. They might be able to let the first one item go, and the second item go, but as it builds up, you finally simply explode over the most pettiest of things. And, by letting it go, I mean, because I've been there. I do an awful lot of driving, cross-country excursions. And so I've witnessed, you name it, I've witnessed it all going down the road. And I actually wanted to come up with an electronic device. I mean, this might be a great idea for one of your listeners out right there. I wanted to come up with a little electronic device where, you know, that they have all these little fine wires that go through your windshield right now to where you could heat your windshield right through and no problems with it. But I kept thinking, put up some type of electronics right there just so that you can communicate with others, because you might be in your car. You might be in your car and you might be going beat on the dash or the steering wheel, and you might be going front, but I go, you could also have these little electronic devices where you just push a button and you just let them know. Boof. Right there.
This is so wonderful because this goes right to my newest book, which is coming out, is going to rock the world, and it's called Oh Shift. And yes, it's just a little bit below the line because it's the ability to, when someone cuts you off or something happens, to just say, "Oh, shift," and start laughing.
Yeah. No, I'm with you right there. It's kind of like going, people that speed stuff, I've got no problem. I'll get right out of the way and I'll let them fly down the road, and I have no problem. I just, whatever they're in a hurry to get to, be my guest. I'm not that same person. So.
Oh, see, this is so wonderful. Be my guest. So this is going to be an interesting segue, because if anybody has not been living under a rock over the past 20, 30, 40 years, and you don't know who Dan Severn, the Beast, is, then we'll talk a little bit. If I start reading his CV, his biography, it will take the rest of the show. I'm just going to hit on three little points. Number one, he is the most famous, the most celebrated, the most decorated MMA. We'll call it a fighter in the world. That's number one. And in the UFC world, and in the Wrestling Hall of Fame world. You don't get more famous, but let's put that aside. You don't get more involved in this remarkable, interesting, fascinating sport of Greco-Roman wrestling, and now taking it into MMA and UFC. And I want to just go into the world because that's how people know you. That's what you're famous for. And I have a deep question that touches me. You ready for this?
Hit me with it there, Barry.
How does the man who understands that one must integrate the mind and the body to live a full life, how does one enter into the octagon, which is what you call it, knowing that you're going to be facing another being, and that what you're supposed to do in that octagon is to beat the other being? Let's drop the S in beast and say, I'm here to beat that other being.
Yes. Physically impose your will upon another individual, mentally and physically, whether that's with, again, just for your audience right there, this industry, when it is now known as mixed martial arts, MMA, mixed martial arts, and it has approximately either 47 or 49 rules to it today. When it first began, it was known as NHB, which stood for No Holds Barred. It had two rules, those being: do not bite your opponent, do not stick a finger in your opponent's eye, no eye gouging. End of the rule. So let your imagination flow. And people says, does that mean that you could punch them, you could kick them in the groin and things of that nature? I go, as long as you weren't biting nothing in the process, as long as you weren't sticking a finger in the eye, you were good to go. And even then, those two rules, Barry, were not grounds for disqualification. The referee would simply slap your hand and go, hey, don't do that again, and give him his eyeball back, okay? You can't keep a keepsake, okay?
I like that.
No trinkets.
Eyeball back.
But again, but even a lot of the early competitors, I should say the more current competitors, they are really not aware of their history. That's one thing that I'll say is kind of like a negativity towards United States and the educational system. Very few of our kids really understand their roots. So if they don't really understand their roots, how are they going to know how they should be taking our country through its leadership in that? And I question all types of leadership when I say that comment there itself.
I'd like to unpack a few things that you mentioned here. So again, let's take you, go back a few years, 5, 10, 20, whenever, when you were beginning the process of the MMA and the UFC and such. And now you're there to win. You're not there to shake hands and sit down and play a hand of poker or just say, hey, what's going on? How you working out? You're there to beat the opponent physically. You said it better, mentally and physically. Let's just use those two, because I am going to posit something that I think is true, but then again, you're the expert because this is what you do. But I've talked to a number of elite athletes, which is what you are, and they all agree that it's mental first, physical follows, not second. Physical must follow the mental, but it's the visualization of you beating your opponent. Is that correct?
I definitely would say that the mental aspect has a greater height to it or merit to it than the actual physical preparation. And my career is a testament to it, because out of doing the cage fighting career for 20 years, out of a 20-year career, I only ever did 2 training camps. where the physical actually came into play. And even then, those 2 training camps, one was for 32 days and one was for 35 days. When you look at some of these young athletes now preparing for one match coming up, they will be in a training camp for 6 to 8 months out. And again, they've got dietitians. They got all these people, again, going back in time. I stumbled across it. Actually, I should say a friend of mine simply watched the first 2 UFC, because back then pay-per-views were not as prevalent as they are today. Back then, you had to go to a major. You had to be around some type of a major city, and you usually would go to a theater or something like that, and they would be playing the pay-per-views there. Now today, you can pick up your cell phone and you can watch a pay-per-view right from the comfort of your cell phone. So again, technology has improved a great deal. That's where, even as I'm doing certain speaking engagements, as I travel around the United States and that, I have to educate the folks. And sometimes they look at me like going, what do you mean by this phone, this cell phone or the, I still have, well, Barry, just again, to go on a little side story, inside my training facility in Coldwater, Michigan, I have an actual wall phone that's still there. Now it doesn't work. Okay. It doesn't work. It sits there, but every now and then when I'm back there, if I want to have a little fun with whoever I'm showing around, I will take my cell phone and I will put it on ringer mode. It rings and I go over and I pick up the wall phone and I start to carry on a conversation. And I got these people looking at me like, what is this device that's attached to the wall and stuff like that? And
with a cord. By the way, does it have a dialing system or is it punch?
No, actually, the dial. Even it has the dial on top of that. Yeah.
And they don't even know what do I do? Do I put my finger here and I have to move it?
No, again, that's I love seeing that kind of stuff because you've lived life long enough to see so many different changes. So I'll say that a lot of the changes have been for the better. I mean, for efficiency, stuff like that. But then certain things, were they really for the better? Not so much,
So again, let's go back into the octagon or wherever it is that you're going to. You're a fighter. Let's just be blunt.
Well, I mean, again, I always tell people I have never been in a fight in my entire life. Okay, there's a different mindset. I'm not a fighter. I'm a competitor. I mean, and even again for your program, your show there, I go, Barry, life is competition. If you and you can't think of any other way. If you want to live the most quality of life, you have to prepare yourself. You're still in the same type of training. I have to train my body. I have to train my mind. I mean, the reality is, again, I don't want to be sounding bleak here, but the reality is we will all die one day. But how many people have truly lived? And when I look at what I've done through my career, because I have the biggest distinction people are starting to find out more and more. They might find out about me because they saw me climb into an octagon cage. They saw me climb into a professional wrestling ring. But then when they start to do a little bit deeper dive, they start to realize, how long has this guy been around so far? I mean, it's kind of like, I always tell people I started my amateur wrestling career back in 7th grade, 1969. And so the fact that I've been competing in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, 2020 plus, because I still step into what's known as the squared circle, the professional wrestling arena, and I still do professional wrestling matches. And I travel around the country and the world. Well, I'll say the last couple of years, not so much around the world, but it's opening back up to where I do a lot of instructional type of things. I love teaching amateur wrestling, professional wrestling, the mixed martial arts, but then all kinds of submission grappling. But I work with all these first responders. I work with law enforcement, corrections, air marshal, border patrol, military. All of these different first responders industries, they have some type of a ground combative types of component to them. And I've been brought in when I was first approached, like going, and this is back about 1995, like, can you help us with our ground program? I go, I don't know. Show me what you guys are doing. They showed me, and I says, well, now put me in your equipment. I go, I'm used to just going out there in a pair of trunks, put me in your equipment. And then because it does restrict your movement when you got a bulletproof vest on, you've got that duty belt on, you've got the shoes, all the gear and stuff like that. So that once they put me in the equipment, they were blown away what I could show them, what they are able to do. But okay, now on a negative note, fast forward to like today, I still teach classes in all those sectors. The reality is though now, because there are no longer any standards in the United States, we no longer have standards, especially when it comes to physicality, that when I go and teach a law enforcement class, I am by far the oldest guy that will be in the room. I'll have 20, 30 or more officers that are being there. And typically I will want to fail 75 to 80% of the class just on sheer physical inability alone. These are people that are so far overweight that they're a heart attack waiting to happen. In the first place, there was a time when, like state police, you had to be a minimum of a certain height and you had to maintain a certain weight. Those went away probably 20 years ago, and to where there are no longer any standards. But Barry, let me bring up one other aspect here. Again, I'm just talking about these are first responders. Do you remember this thing called the Presidential Physical Fitness Award patch?
Absolutely.
Okay. You go to any school or junior high right now and ask that, they don't, it's unheard of. They'll be on deaf ears. When you look at in our school systems, that 20 to 30% of the class, the physical education class itself, will not even dress out for class. And yet they are given a passing grade. Why? I don't get it here right now. I mean, don't get me wrong. United States is the number one country in the world. It truly is. I say that not because I'm biased, because I'm from here. As an amateur wrestler, I have a very big pedigree to where I've been to every country that has ever had a wrestling program, and some countries that don't even exist anymore. I know why everyone's coming to the United States, because we are truly the land of opportunity. They don't have the same opportunities at home. Just to be in a home that has lighting that works, water that I can drink out of the drink, restrooms that are actually inside my home and stuff like this, running water. I mean, it's just, people don't realize, and that's one of the problems about most Americans, is that they've had it easy for most of their life. They wonder why a lot of foreigners come here and they succeed, because they came from nothing and they appreciate all these things so much more. So it's like when a foreigner comes here, it's like going back a couple generations of the work ethic and the pride that Americans used to have. They don't have that anymore. And again, I'm not trying to be bleak here. I'm trying to grab people by the scruff of the neck and shove their face into the cow pie of reality. Dan Severn doesn't pull no punches.
Wait. I love this one. The cow pie of reality.
Yes. Well, Barry, I grew up on a farm. So there's a lot of farm boy analogies I used to have. And that's part of probably why I have a good work ethic, because when you awoke in the morning, you had to take care of your chores first before you got taken care of. And you have to all do this within a certain time frame, because you still got to walk, half a mile up the road to catch the school bus in the morning. So
let's talk about this. You were born in a place called Coldwater, Michigan.
No, correction. Because I was born in, and actually I was born in New Lothrop, Michigan. I should say, I went to school at Montrose Hill McCloy is where I went to, because all my friends from school say, why do they always say Coldwater? You were born and raised in Coldwater. I moved there. I have a home there, but that's what when people say, where do you live? Oh, I have a home right there in Coldwater. So again, that's where they all assume, but that's not where I was born and raised. But no, Montrose Hill McCloy High School is where I went to school, and literally, Barry, that's what first awakened me to opportunities, and that was through the sport of through athletics, but particularly through the sport of wrestling. I started off in 7th grade, but I simply just did whatever the coaches said. 7th and 8th grade, I wrestled. I just did whatever the coaches said. my ninth grade year, I'm now in high school, and the high school wrestling coach, a gentleman by the name of Tom Castile, he was also the government teacher. So one day when I came up to his desk to turn in the paper, I seen this stack of magazines, and it was titled Amateur Wrestling News Magazine. I had never seen this magazine before, and he had this big stack of them there. And I'm like going, Coach, I go, do you care if I read through a few of these magazines? And he goes, no, just bring them back when you're done. And as I'm reading through this magazine, that's when my world opened up to me, because up to that point, as I said before, I was just like every other wrestler. I just did whatever the coach told me. Now, as I'm reading these magazines, they're talking about nutritional programs of how to eat to be a better athlete. It talked about the mental preparation. It talked about setting goals for yourself. It talked about the psychological aspect of matches. Techniques, tactics. It awakened my world to where at that point in time, that's what changed me, because I started setting my own goals for myself.
Let's put you on pause for a moment, because we have sponsors that love us. We're going to take a brief break. Keep your seatbelt on. There's more Dan the Beast and the positives that's coming back. And I just want to say what he just said in a few words. Reading opens up your mind. We'll be right back after this brief message. Don't go away. Dan's coming back.
Imagine the kind of place you would want to shop for your favorite fur baby pet. HonestPets.co. Well, you found it. HonestPets.co. Not .com, .co. This is your go-to spot for the best, the cleanest pet treats that exist anywhere on the planet. All of the brands go through a rigorous review to make sure they meet the high standards of cleanliness, health benefits, and naturalness. This site was started by a husband and wife team, and it's veteran-owned, and that care about pets, especially dogs and cats, and coming soon, bird treats. These are very nice young people who really care about making a difference, because a portion of proceeds go to support veteran organizations with a focus on service dogs. This is the place where you want to go. You want to tell your friends this has the finest, yummiest, freshest, all-natural treats and stuff for your fur baby. So go there, honestpets.co. honestpets.co. Do it now. Opportunity. What an opportunity. I'm going to use 2 4-letter words right now. Free gift. Free gift. Yes, you can have a copy of my best-selling book, The Joy of Living, How to Slay Stress and Be Happy, the ebook version, for absolutely free. All you have to do is send an email to me, Barry, Barry, at barryshore.com, and in the heading, the subject line, just write free gift. It's as easy as that. This is a life-changing, life-enhancing opportunity. Barry at barryshore.com. You'll be glad you did. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Free gift. Do it now. Take the action. Make it happen right now. Best wishes. Bye.
Good day. Beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. If you're good-looking, because you're always looking for and finding the good, our cup runneth over with good. And it's the body of Dan the Beast. And the Beast, of course, is the beautiful aspect of him is that he understood intuitively that to create the acronyms of goodness, positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasantness in the Beast is really what he's about, because he is the man that integrates mind and body. And we just left him. Well, he's now in the 9th grade and about to get on the rocket ship called life, because he was going to now be exposed to not just what everybody told him to do. He's going to be able to open up his mind to learn how to utilize his athletic skills, which are being honed, and to do them in the most positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant way. So let's go back to the 9th grade just for a moment. And then I want to go fast forward, because I want to hear some stories. And if you don't want to, it's great. But I think people love when you drop names of some people that you've fought with, against, in competition, et cetera, et cetera. But here you are now in the 9th grade, and I think you're recognizing that you do have a desire, because that's an important aspect of life. You have a desire, you have an ability, you have coaching, and you have a passion now. Something is burning inside of you that says, you know something? I want to win. Win at life. I don't want to beat up other people. I want to win at life. Is that correct?
No, totally agree with everything that you're saying right there, Barry. You know, but my freshman year, basically by reading this magazine, it opened up my mind to all of these other aspects of the sport, new techniques, nutrition, how to train properly, how to exercise my body that much more. And also what I looked at it as was, I was already thinking in my mind, how am I going to be able to go to college after high school? And my first thought was, well, I had a couple of my fellow teammates that had much older brothers that had graduated and basically went into the military for 4 years, came out and went to college on the GI Bill. So that was option number one. By my sophomore year in high school, I already have high school wrestling coaches. I have college coaches that are looking at me. They actually, I have an older brother, Dave, and a lot of coaches thought that we were a set of twins because we were about the same size, but I was a little bit bigger than what he was. I wrestled a weight class above him. And when they found out I was actually younger, they were really impressed with both of us. And so I started getting some potential scholarships offered. They're just saying, you know, keep this up, keep this good work up there, young man. And that by the time you're a senior, you go, there might be some scholarship money. So I kept thinking, option number two, military is here. Here's this potential of a college scholarship. So basically, I started to pour more time into my athletics and the sport of wrestling. Barry, I love the sport of football. I mean, I was a 3-sport athlete for all 3 seasons. In the fall, I played football. In the wintertime, it was wrestling. And then in the spring, track and field. But the track and field coach knew that if there was a wrestling meet on the same weekend date that there was going to be a track meet, he was not going to see me at the track meet. I was doing it for cardiovascular sake and that, but you know, and I was good at running the high and low hurdles and doing the high jump and some other things. But you know, I was investing my time into the sport of wrestling.
I want to pause for a moment because again, we have people all over the world, and I'm so glad that you mentioned prior to the break that the ability for people to be in the United States of America, it was, and God willing will be, God willing with leadership, the land of opportunity.
Yes.
What Dan is sharing with us now is that he found his niche. His niche is in athletics. And he recognized that by channeling his athletic skills and his ability and learning more, this is what I want to emphasize here, Dan. It's the ability to use your yearning for learning,
yes,
which will enable you to have earning. You see how they work together? You have your yearning, learning, and earning. You recognize that by using focus through your mind, working on the body, that everything was available to you. There was no thing that could prevent you from success. Is that fair to say?
Very good. When you were doing your intro, and I'm trying to think, because I actually made a couple different notes here because I did like a couple of your acronyms, especially on the SMILE and that MAD, make a difference. I really like I really like that one as well. But you know, there is a great deal of reality. You are what you are, an environment of how you surround. Who are the people you surround yourself with? What are, you know, there's a lot of people, I think they have too much free time and they watch way too many videos. They watch a little bit, way too much of television. And I'm not thinking, you know, you can't fix the whole world. And the reality is you really should almost just really worry about your world and keep yourself a little bit preoccupied and be that pillar that people look to and not the people that they complain about. Because there's a lot of people that are doing they work that jawline just a little too much. And to me, it's like going, are you really curing the problem? Are you doing things? Because I mean, it's what I like is I like what I do. I like the fact that I would have thought that things would have been slowing down for me at this juncture of life at 64. But the reality is, it's picked up momentum. I always laugh. I tell people that if the cloning process was a little further along, I'd order about 2 or 3 more of me, slap mustaches on them, and send them out. This guy can go teach amateur wrestling this guy will go teach professional wrestling that. I can sit back here and I can go fishing myself,
But I want to unpack a couple of things that you said here. One of my favorite acronyms that I learned, by the way, from a football coach at Ohio State is the acronym called YAW. You're going to love this one, Dan.
YAW?
Yeah. YAW. YAW.
Okay.
Ready?
I'm ready.
You are who you associate with.
That is so true. That is so true.
Said. When not only was Dan emerging as a potential, yes, I'm going to go to college, scholarship, I'm going to really do this. I'm going to be a great wrestler. He wasn't thinking, well, I'm going to be the wrestling champion of the world. He may have had some dream once in a while, but he understood that by focusing and by learning and by coaching and by by being with the best people, that he could do with exactly what this podcast is all about, by the way. The Joy of Living podcast is not about Dan the Beast, even though he's a great guy, or about Barry Shore, that fabulous fellow. This podcast is about you. YOU. It's about you being the best you possible. That's why I'm here. That's why Dan's here. That's why you're here. You're here to become the best you possible. Because when you're the best you make the world a better place. Right, Dan?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's what I said before that, because I've had other people interview me, and for the first times that I got hit with a question like going, once you're gone from this earth there, Dan, what would you like people to remember about you? And I'd never been asked that question before. And I came up with your mad response. I said, Dan Severn may have done all these other things, but Dan Severn made a difference. Dan Severn made a positive difference. That's what I'm looking for.
And not only are you looking for, that's what you're doing. That's what your life is about. Hey, tell everybody, what is it like to be a Triple Crown champion UFC? Because those UFC champion belts, it's not a string. It's not a little plaque. It's these big, heavy belts that, what does that feel like, Dan?
Well, again, for your viewers, because a lot of them probably they know about the Ultimate Fighting Championships. Many of them may have actually even viewed 1 or 2 of their shows. The athletes, they face just one-on-one type of competition. They're just doing single matches, and they only have one match that they are preparing for. Going back to that NHB era, it used to be an 8-man tournament. In the exact same 2-hour pay-per-view that still plays to this day. Back then, you had to defeat 3 men because no women were competed at that time. Not until like the mid 2000s did women's competition come into play, and so the same 2-hour pay-per-view that took place back then. You had to learn to conserve yourself. You had to learn to go into a match, and you had to learn to take care of your opponent as quickly as you possibly could, without injuring yourself, because again, this was bare knuckled action. There were no gloves. So, and again, as I said there, Barry, there were only 2 rules: no biting, no eye gouging. So, you saw. I mean, I've been involved in a couple matches where I delivered well over 300 headbutts in a 30-minute match. So literally, I'm delivering a headbutt every single minute. I'm thinking, Barry, how do you prepare? Barry, here, how does this headbutt feel? No, you don't practice headbutts on your workout partners because that's going to hurt,
But wait a minute. I'm asking the question that hundreds of thousands of people watching are asking. Wait a minute. You've had headbutts. Well, you just said 300 in the course of matches inside.
Of one match, again, one match. I still got to do two more.
But you're still lucid, articulate, capable. You don't have broken teeth. You're not, walking around like this. How did
maybe you should have met me maybe you should have met me a few years earlier.
I mean, think about this. Bare knuckle fighting was something that I read about from the 19th century, or
Yes.
the early part of the 20th. John L. Sullivan with fighting. It's hard even to imagine, Dan. But I want to go to the reality that you're fighting somebody who is equally as capable as you. In other words, you're not fighting a pygmy or Lilliputian. You're not fighting somebody who's just a weakling. You're fighting somebody who is as skilled as you, who, as we presume, as desirous of winning as you. What is the edge that enabled Dan to become the beast, to become the champion that you are?
Well, the person who gave me the ring name, The Beast, was the legendary NFL Hall of Famer, Jim Brown. He was one of the play-by-play color commentators for half a dozen of their shows. And even in his words, he said, when I first met you, Dan, I did not think that much about you. Matter of fact, he didn't even know I was one of the competitors, because when I showed up to the event, I was the only participant that was wearing a sports jacket, a tie, and I was wearing my glasses because I need glasses for distance. So everybody thought that I was somebody's agent. And I had Al Snow, the professional wrestling trainer. Al Snow was with me, and he's wearing tank top, muscle guard. I mean, he's all muscled up, stuff like that. They all thought that he was me, and I was someone's manager, and I was his manager. So when the UFC officials announced all fighters up to they had table right there because they could start their press conference, because there was not a weigh-in at that time, because no matter what, you just compete against whatever the weight class. And the biggest weight difference, just so people know, was 400-pound weight difference. There was a 600 plus pound sumo wrestler that went up against a 200-pound Kempo karate guy. But right. David did slay Goliath that day, because Keith Hackney, and again, those are people that I don't know why they have not been celebrated more, because he was an air conditioning guy, and he basically was also a martial artist, but he found out about this thing, got into it, and I mean, that was the most incredible match, because how many people could stare across the cage and realize, how am I going to beat this bad mountain over on the other side? Most people would be trying to climb that cage and get out.
Wait a minute. I want to put an image in people. Most of the people listening or watching are under the age of 35. So by definition, when I say Clark Kent, it goes right over their heads. So people out there, Google Clark Kent, and I want you to see the image. Here comes Dan in his sports jacket with a tie and glasses, and he's the MMA competitor. And so basically it's Clark Kent taking off his glasses, his sports jacket, his tie, and now he's Superman, or in this case, the Beast. I mean, it's so wonderful, Dan.
Yeah, well, again, that's exactly the verbiage that Jim Brown used. He goes, watching you climb up into the octagon was like watching Clark Kent morph into Superman. He goes, he never saw anyone transition like that. He goes, how do you do that? I'm thinking, Jim Brown is asking me a question. I mean, I was watching him when I was a senior in high school. He was the most punishing running back in the history of the game. He didn't run around people. He ran over people. And it took, I think, two other athletes an additional decade of playing time just to beat his rushing record. So to me, I always tell people, I didn't make up my ring name. It was bestowed upon me by a legendary NFL Hall of Famer. So I take great pride in that. But again, I had to take that beast, that acronym, and turn it into something positive that Dan Severn can live with. So
because that's exactly the essence of Dan.
Yes.
he needed to utilize the beast in the positive way, so it's something he could not only live with, but live up to.
Yes.
And live beyond, because now in his training camps, what he's doing is he's investing his mind and his channeling of goodness into these dynamic young athletes who, let's be blunt, they are a cut above. Nobody comes to your workout camps unless they're really serious about competing in life. And I'm sure of this, but you don't have to correct me on it, that there are some that are coming there only to beat someone else.
Yes,
And
I was going to say early on, you hit the nail on the head there, because I had some athletes that they came to the facility, and I questioned them a great deal of why they want to get at this, because this is not everyone's cup of tea. This you got to have a certain type of mentality, and I would question what other athletic attributes do you have? What kind of sports did you participate in junior high or high school? Did you participate in any kind of collegiate type of sports, just to find out? But you'd be surprised, like today, Barry, when you look through how many people go through our school systems and they don't participate in any type of athletics. They don't go to any of the physical education class anymore. And they wonder why do we have such a United States is number one country in the world. It's also number one in obesity, because we are the land of abundance. We have all this food that looks fantastic. It's got the right coloration. It tastes scrumptious, stuff like that. But when you look at the actual nutritional value of it, it's all artificial coloring, artificial flavoring. And it's got so many different chemicals into it. We're not eating real food anymore. And you're looking at, why is our life expectancy decreasing? And it should be increasing is what it should be doing, because medicine and everything else has advanced so much. We should be living longer, which again, if you look at what the early pioneers lived to, and when you see what people are living to today, you have more centurions living over in the European countries. But you got to look at their lifestyle. What are they eating, drinking, the whole 9 yards? And I always tell people, it's not exactly rocket science. All I can do is simply just look at things. Again, growing up on a farm, I remember as a very young lad that my grandma would say, I need you to go out there and dig me up some dandelion roots. I need you to go dig up this, that, and she would whip up some poultices. But then she also had some certain wines and stuff like that she did. But these were all things these were weeds and things of that nature that she knew how to make into something else.
Utilize. So let's. I'm sorry to say these few words, but our time at this particular juncture is coming to a close. But I would like to just synopsize some of what you just said here. No matter what your sport is and your desire, if you are ingesting physically things that are artificial and of zero nutritional value, it will also affect your mind.
Yes.
So you want to learn. That's why people really come to Dan's camp and want to be around Dan, because this is called authenticity. When you live with authenticity, and you're eating right, and you're thinking right, now you can be in a place where you can be a champion. You can live life to the full. As he says, life is competition, but you want to live life to the full.
Yeah.
So as I said, I'm only sorry to use these words at the moment, Dan, but we're coming to a close. I have 3 questions for you.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
Number 1, will you come back again?
Yes, sir.
Woo! Thank you. Number 2, you have 80 seconds only to answer this question. 80 seconds.
Okay.
And the beast, Severn. What is your most fervent desire?
What's my current most desire?
Your most fervent desire. What's your most passionate desire right now?
Okay, you got me on the clock right now. I mean, I know what my theme is all about right now. My whole theme is about health and wealth. So it was interesting again listening to your introduction, because I'm about health and wealth, because most people, what's their biggest number one concern is finances. Yet how many people really put forth the effort to go after finances? I mean, everyone can get a job, but is that the career they're looking for? So those are 2 different things right now. Most people, exist doing a job.
So Dan is echoing what the joy of living is all about. By the way, everything and anything you want to know about Dan, go to my website, www.whatawonderfulworld.barryshore.com. It's there in the screen, in the notes, everywhere. barryshore.com. Everything you want to know about Dan is there. All the show notes, all the links and such like that, because he's a cog. He's a channel of goodness. He's a child of God. And he's here to help us. Remember, the show, The Joy of Living, is all about you becoming happier, healthier, and wealthier. Who doesn't want that? Okay, and the last question is, may I give you a hug in front of 358,722 people around the world?
Of course you can.
Okay, but I got to tell you what HUG stands for.
All
Ready?
right.
Heartfelt, unlimited giving. Heartfelt.
Oh, giving. The last one was giving. Okay.
Unlimited giving.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Count of three. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in consciously and conscientiously to The Joy of Living. Because, in this show, we discuss the 3 fundamentals of life, and they make you use these 3 fundamentals. You'll be happier, healthier, and wealthier. That's what Dan's always all about. Happier, healthier, and wealthier.
Yep.
The fundamentals are number one, life. Your life has purpose. Like Dan said, you lead a purpose-driven life. Number 2 happens. In this case, a good number 2. You go mad. MAD stands for make a difference. That is what Dan is all about. And number 3, unlock the power and the sequence of everyday words and terms like WWW, what a wonderful world. And smile. Seeing miracles in life every day. Or as my 8-year-old niece says, seeing miracles in everyday life. Create the kind of world you want to live in. Create stands for causing rethinking, enabling all to excel. That's what Dan was talking about. Thinking is the key. Neuro-linguistic programming, but really it's all about understanding the 6 most important words in life. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. How you respond in any given situation really makes a difference in your life. Learn to use 4-letter words. But remember, we live in the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant. So our 4-letter words are love, life, hope, grow, free, gift, pray, play, mind. And remember to tell the world after the show, F you, everybody. Remember to add right away, capital N, capital N. Where'd you get that? I said, hey, Barry Shore wants to teach the world to F you. And remember to use the 2 most powerful and important words in the English language 3 times a day, consciously and conscientiously from now and the rest of your life. They'll help you, your family, your friends, and all the world. They are, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks stands for to harmonize and network kindness. You can't find anyone more kind than wonderful Dan, the positive beast, Severn. Because kind stands for keep inspiring noble deeds. And our blessing from Dan and Barry is go forth, live exuberantly, spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad. Go make a difference. Dan, don't go away, okay?
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Joy of Living podcast. Now that's another step towards your healthier, happier, and wealthier life. Never hesitate to do good in the world, no matter what the situation. Join us for another upbeat discussion next time at barryshore.com. And be sure to leave a rating and subscribe to the show to get more conversations like this. And remember to share it with your family and friends too. See you on the next episode.